there's a lot of scientists that we don't know or we hear about. We don't hear about, they're not on the front page news. But this one, she is cool.
I was raised in Missouri and Iowa, and my mother attended what was then Mankato State. And because I had graduated very early, I found it reasonable to go along with her to start college. I found Mankato State extremely welcoming. I never in any way felt threatened there. Everyone was very accepting of me, and my professors were just wonderful to me. So I had a great experience. I mean, I can't imagine having had a better experience than I had. I very much appreciated Dr. Leonard Ford. He was very encouraging to me, and then Dr. Walter Fleming, who was the head of the math department. The other person that I can remember was Dr. Ted Paul. He was a speech teacher and very effervescent, and I found a great rapport with him as well. I was a chemistry and mathematics major, and I was the first woman in chemistry. As a matter of fact, I didn't look around to realize that at the time. I didn't realize how unusual it was what I was doing. I joined the technical facilities of General Motors Research Laboratories and was on their technical staff almost 27 years. I was a senior research physicist, and fortunately was able to go on to Argonne National Laboratory and became director of global climate change programs there, and then came to the University of California, first of all as director of the National Institute for Global Environmental Change, and more recently I've joined the faculty as a tenured professor in land, air, and water resources and the School of Agriculture and Environmental Science. Wherever I've gone, I've had a tremendous challenge being female. I was the first person doing so many different things. I was on the Science Advisory Board of the EPA. I was on the International Joint Commission between the United States and Canada. I've been on so many things where I was first, or one of the first women, first woman to get a gold award in engineering. I am deeply concerned that what we are seeing in climate change now is at such an accelerated pace. I really believe climate change threatens the world, threatens civilization, and I think we need to do everything we can. What does MSU mean to me? It was a fine bridge to set me on my future goals, and as I look back with very fond memories of what I experienced there. I feel very strongly that what we think about, we attract. If we think everyone is being negative, we attract that negativity. So I would recommend that they think very positively, that they do what they like, that they be very passionate about what they do. And in the end, I think they will find it a very rewarding experience, whatever they do.
So,
she's great.
RIP. And we are now going to read the article about her to you and what happened, and introduce you to somebody a little too late. But she lived a very long life. I think she was, 90? Yeah. So, Jennifer, you want to take it away?
Okay, and we can tag team it if you'd like.
Sure.
A woman warned GM about warming, but men didn't listen. I've heard that before. Ruth Reck did pioneering climate change research at an automotive giant where she says she faced sexism.
No.
Uh,
Really, Jen? Yeah.
really? Yes, misogyny prevails. A General Motors scientist who conducted pioneering research on climate change in the 1960s says she faced sexism that made it difficult for her to do her job. Ruth Reck's allegations raise questions about whether GM executives dismissed or downplayed her findings on global warming because of her gender. Reck joined GM Laboratories in Warren, Michigan in 1965 and soon began studying the effects of car emissions on the climate, E&E News reported as part of a months long investigation. As the first female scientist in the lab, she encountered an environment in which male coworkers evaluated her body rather than her brains. God, I
Okay.
resemble that
I'm
remark.
telling
Yes,
you, I think that gets the flush of the day.
definitely. Do it, Sandy. Do it. Don't delay.
There you go.
Thank you.
Ruth would be
Flush of the
happy.
day. Yeah. Quote, I had a very difficult time working at GM in general. They told me I was a distraction because I was a shapely woman. I don't want to go into detail, but it was really hard. Really, unbelievably embarrassing. Rack recalled in one of several phone call interviews with E&E News. The lab was located inside the GM Technical Center, which had been designed by the noted Finnish American architect Erno Saarinen. Its walls were made almost entirely of glass.
Oh.
There was glass everywhere. You could see everyone everywhere, Rex said. And the men, I was told, I distracted them. You could just tell that their eyes were on you all the time.
Mm, mm,
In
mm.
response, GM constructed a makeshift wall around Rex's workplace so passing colleagues couldn't peer inside. They built something so that people couldn't see me, some kind of wall or something. When people walked down the hallway, they put me in a position where I wouldn't be seen by the men. Oh my God. It was inside this cocoon that Reck conducted groundbreaking research on aerosols or particles that can come from cars and factories. She found that aerosols caused heating of the atmosphere near the poles, and her work was published in several peer reviewed scientific journals, including Science and, and Atmospheric Environment. During this time, a male VP took several women at GM out to lunch. Reck was the only woman in the group with a PhD. The rest were secretaries. That experience preceded meetings with three high level executives at GM, all men, who
Mhm.
doubted Reck's conclusions on global warming. Of course they
That's
did.
pretty
Of
messed up.
course they did. In response to questions about Rex allegations, GM spokesman Jim Kane said the automaker today is committed to diversity and inclusion. Well, aren't you proud of yourself? As you can imagine, there is no practical way to respond to Ruth Reck's experiences other than to take her at her word and underscore what she describes is antithetical to the company's values today, Kane said. Quote, General Motors is acutely aware of its responsibility and opportunity to use our scale and resources to drive a better, more inclusive future for all,
Oh
he
boy.
added, bunch of brown nosing political bullshit. I am sorry. This is
Yep,
typical.
she
Right?
went through it.
She did. I mean, you don't make stuff like that up. I
Mhm.
understand that so well what she
I
went
know.
through. CO2 and the CEOs. Oh, this is funny. Throughout the 1970s, Reck researched the effects of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. Her work offered strong evidence that CO2 heated the planet and could trigger dire consequences on Earth, such as melting ice sheets and sea
Mhm.
level rise.
Mhm.
Despite her experience, Reck was passed over for the opportunity to lead GM's task force on global warming in 1989. Bullshit.
Wow. Wow.
Such.
Right.
Bullshit. Yeah. Corporations, this is what happens. That distinction went to Joseph Joe Colucci, an engineer who specialized in automotive fuels and lubricants.
Lubricants
The guy who specialized in automotive fuel and lubricants
was the climate change guy for
took
GM. A bunch of
took
idiots.
over the task force on global warming. What's wrong with this picture? What could possibly be
A
wrong?
lot. I was looking for a sound effect. A lot is wrong with this
God.
picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who had not published any papers on climate change in peer reviewed journals. So basically, he knew fuck all,
Right.
really.
Nothing.
Led by Colucci, the task force drafted and released a report on technologies needed to address global warming. Reck was never asked to review the document. Oh, yeah, don't ask the girl to take a look at it. She might
Oh
see
my
something.
God.
I hate this, right? What really bothered me was things were written down and reports published, and I never saw them before they were published, she said. In a 2017 memoir titled Special Memories of My Career at General Motors. Oh, isn't that special? What kind of special memories, right? Colucci recounted how the automaker convened the task force to investigate the science of global warming.
Oh boy.
It must have been a
He
new
did not.
concept for him.
He was full
Yeah,
of bull.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally full of bull.
Yeah.
He also described how he was reprimanded for making a sexist comment about the Western State Petroleum Association by Betsy Anker Johnson, GM's vice president of environmental activities staff
Oh
and the
Lord.
first female vice president in the US auto history. Quote, I sent a note to the GM management. It said, we went through the mating dance with WSPA, but were unable to consummate the relationship. What? The
Lord.
note was easily understood and received praise from all but one GM exec, Dr. Betsy Anker Johnson, VP, Environmental Activities, chastised me for my sexist comments. Yeah, well, it's a
Okay, wait.
disgusting way to
He
talk
gets the
about
next
things.
one.
Yeah, flush him.
Bye,
Flush this
Colucci.
guy.
Bye bye,
Bye,
Colucci.
Colucci.
Bye
Down the
bye.
toilet with you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were women in the workplace, and we both know about this kind of
Oh,
stuff.
so much. I know so much about this.
Mm.
Despite being excluded from the task force, Reck was asked to present her findings on climate change to three top executives at GM corporate headquarters in Detroit. James Jimmy Johnston, a vice president of government relations, Roger Bonham Smith, who became chairman and CEO of GM in 1981, and Robert Bob Stemple, who succeeded Smith in 1990. The two CEOs reacted with skepticism. I know in my heart of hearts what some of those people at GM were thinking, and they were questioning climate change. No doubt about that, Rex said. Quote, I was not, and I knew I was using equations and I was doing the calculations correctly.
Hmm.
And I always found it frustrating when you'd look at their faces after what you had said and you could see they were not responding the way you hoped they would. In other words, it wasn't even computing. They just
No,
didn't let the information on
they knew
board.
they would have to make changes, big changes, and that would be
Yeah.
expensive, and it would be
Yeah.
met with a lot of problematic people.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
After learning from Reck that CO2 emissions from car tailpipes warmed the planet, the CEOs largely declined to alter GM's business model and lobbying practice in response. Big surprise there, Sandy.
Big surprise.
Both Smith and Stemple presided over periods in which the automaker investigated in gas guzzling trucks and SUVs while fighting fuel economy regulations that would have made those vehicles cleaner. Thank you. At first, Johnston appeared to take a keen interest in Reck's research, and the two forged an unusual friendship. But in 1989, He orchestrated GM's involvement in the Global Climate Coalition. What kind of bullshit is that? A
Uh-huh.
lobbying group that opposed actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions during the
Yay.
George H.W. Bush administration, said Mariana.
So intelligent. So much.
So stupid. These people are so stupid and so self serving and so short sighted, I might say,
Mm-hmm.
said Mariana von Neumann Whitman, who was GM's vice president and group executive for public affairs at the time. Johnston felt his major obligation was to protect the product plan. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
keep doing what you're doing and don't tell people what it's going to cause.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Bullshit. And he was the one that got General Motors into the Global Climate Coalition, said Whitman, who's now a professor at the University of Michigan's Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy. After leaving GM, Johnston joined the American
Oh,
Enterprise
those
Institute.
bastions of intelligence.
Oh, really?
Yes. Horrible.
Oh, really? A conservative think tank whose scholars have said concern about climate change is overblown. Really? You
Yes.
think that concern about climate change is
Yes.
overblown? You
Yes.
overblown piece of shit.
Yeah.
While at AEI, he published a book titled Driving America: Your Car, Your Government, Your Choice, that argued the science was not settled on whether the climate is warming, and if so, whether the warming is even the result of human activity.
Yeah,
You
they wasted
piece
a
of
lot of time.
shit.
They wasted an awful lot of time.
Yeah. They killing us, killing
Uh-huh.
us.
Yes.
Voices you just haven't heard. It's unclear whether sexism played a role in the CEO's decision to doubt Reck's conclusions on climate change. Sexist attitudes and intentions are difficult to prove, and her conclusions posed an
Mm-hmm.
inconvenient truth about their profit making strategy.
Exactly.
That's right. What is clear is that their reactions were part of a broader pattern of women in the auto industry feeling underrepresented and dismissed by their male counterparts, a pattern that persists today. 1988, the Associated Press reported that women constituted less than 2% of the
Wow.
executives in the US auto industry. Can you believe that?
That was
My God.
88. I don't know what it is now. I didn't look up that statistic. This
Yeah.
article's from 2020.
Yeah. It's, quote, it's certainly been a man's domain for many years, said Jean Bayer, then the vice president for marketing and research planning at GM, told AP at the time, noting that women had only started choosing careers in the auto industry in the prior 10 to 15 years. Okay, that may be true. Almost 3 decades later, in Automotive News survey of nearly 900 women found that misogyny was pervasive in the US auto industry. 43% of the
Oh my
respondents
God.
said they believed that they had been passed over for promotions because of their gender. More than half, 55%, reported receiving unwelcome comments on their appearance. Many respondents pointed to Mary Barra's appointment in 2014 as CEO of
Yeah.
GM and the first female CEO of a major automaker as a breakthrough moment for women in the industry. But they said it didn't diminish the discrimination they faced on a daily basis. Quote, everything I've heard from women in the industry is that it's really bad. It's still not your most woke industry. Oh, that's an
Woke.
understatement. Yeah, definitely not your most woke industry.
Ah.
And it's still very common to be the only woman in the room, Sharon Silk Carty, who helped conduct the survey, said in an interview with E&E News. I think the industry has lost a lot of talented women who opt to go to other places because it's too hard. And I think women's voices just haven't been heard in the way that male voices have been heard. I'm sure that's quite true, said
Hmm.
Cardi, who's now an editor of chief of Car and Driver and Automotive magazine, whose pages have oozed with masculinity imagery, masculine imagery since its creation in 1955. I love the way this is written. It's like it
Yeah.
has oozed with masculine imagery. It's like, really? It's
Yeah.
oozed with it? Oh my goodness. Mary Beth Vandershoff, a managing editor at Automotive News, who helped administer the survey, said she thinks the industry has made some stride towards gender equality. Vanderschaft noted that the Automotive News has conducted a poll every 5 years of 100 leading women in the North American auto industry. This year's results, which are set to be published next month, this was back in 2020,
Hmm.
will reveal that respondents believe the industry has made progress on pay equity. Well, yes, about time. On a personal note, Vanderschaft said she felt inspired by Barra's ascendance to the top of GM. The appointment of Mary Barra as CEO was historic. For me, it was like when John Lennon was killed or the Challenger exploded. Very odd comparison, Sandy, I must say. The appointment of Mary Barra was like when John Lennon was killed or the Challenger exploded. I remember where I was when I heard the news. It's that big a deal. Okay, fair. Enraging and heartbreaking. Do you mind if I keep going, Sandy?
Go.
Do you have
I'm
any?
enjoying this.
Okay, good. Enraging and heartbreaking. Women who have been overlooked in the field of climate science as well. Eunice Newton Foote. Now, I
We've
actually
talked about
looked up
her.
Eunice Newton Foote, and she is amazing.
Hmm.
The first woman, and she's right, she was a neighbor of yours back in the 1850s, Sandy, up in Seneca Falls or
Yep.
something, right?
Yes.
Eunice Newton Foote, the first woman in climate science, posited in 1856 that CO2 affected the Earth's temperature. But the Irish physicist John Tyndall widely gets credit for the theory, which he suggested 3 years later.
A
That
lot
has
of
happened
lot of
before.
flushes tonight.
Yeah, let's flush that one. The fact that John Tyndall thought about it at 3 years after she figured it out.
On
Definitely.
this eve of Gilead in the United States.
Holy fucking shit. Okay. Wrote Anna Elizabeth Johnston and Catherine Wilkinson in their recent book, All We Can Save Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. Guys, if you want an inspirational read that you can pick up and put down, pick up this book, All We Can Save Truth, Courage, and Solutions for the Climate Crisis. I have it, and it's got all kinds of essays, articles, poetry, art, insights. It's a really good thing. We have to wonder if Eunice Newton Foote ever found herself remarking, as so many women have, I literally just said that, dude. Right? Right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
she wrote papers about it,
Yeah.
and then this
Yeah.
Tyndall freak gets the credit. Just come on, I literally just said that, dude. Johnston and Wilkinson wrote the book, which serves as a call to action for women to become leaders in the climate activism movement.
Yay.
In an interview with E&E News, Wilkinson said many female climate scientists who are active today have had experiences similar to the one endured by
Sad.
Foote.
That's
Wilkinson,
sad.
who serves as vice president at Project Drawdown, nonprofit organization that seeks to help the world reduce greenhouse gas emissions, pointed to a 2018 study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences on female scientists who authored the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Assessment. The study found that while some female authors had positive experience, others felt they were poorly represented and heard on the powerful scientific body. This would be frustrating in any field, Wilkinson said, but it is especially enraging and heartbreaking when it is the field that has such a critical role to play in a livable future. Wilkinson said she asks herself, what if, in relation to Foote, Reck, and other climate scientists whose work could have been
Yeah, what if?
used to exert a greater influence on reining in heat trapping emissions, but they were resoundingly ignored, both of these women and a lot of others as well.
It's very angering.
It is. It's very
And it's
angering, but
happening all over again.
it is. The what ifs are gutting, she said. What if Foote had the resources and the platform that John Tyndall had? What might have she accomplished? What might have Ruth Reck been able to influence? And the truth is, we don't know. Kane, the GM spokesman, noted the automaker recently announced it would aspire to be the most inclusive company in the world. Oh, is that
Woo!
right? Woohoo! Following the death of George Floyd, a black man in the custody of Minneapolis police officers. As part of a goal, Barra commented to establishing an inclusive advisory board that would consult with GM senior leadership about racism and other forms of discrimination. After 27 years at GM, Reck left the automaker in 1992 to become head of the global climate change program at Argonne National Laboratory.
Yay. Good for her.
Yay, finally. Good, good. Get out of there. She was the first female scientist at Argonne who hadn't been recommended by her husband. Oh, God, is that ridiculous? Yeah, why don't you hire my little wife? She's got some good ideas. Yeah. Now, 88 years old and retired. Now, this is 4 years ago. So now she would have been, what, 92?
Yeah, she
Reck
passed.
identifies as a feminist and believes gender equality, in addition to climate change, represents a defining issue of the century. I'm a feminist, and that changes how I think about things. There were women who were not feminists and disagreed with me, thinking men deserved higher pay because they brought
Oh, God.
more to the
The
scene.
scene.
What the hell?
We lived
I
through all
don't get
this,
that. What did
Jennifer.
they bring more to the scene? I'm just like mystified by
Testosterone,
that.
hon. More
Jesus.
testosterone. They
You know,
brought the dicks to
they
the
brought the dicks to the
dicks to the
scene.
scene.
I did not think that, Rex said in a follow up text message to E&E News. I believe God intended us to be how we are, she added. There's no reason we should be criticized for how we are. I am proud to be female. The men should be professional enough to act in a grown up way. Wow. And
Yeah,
this is,
wow.
after she had been oogled and googled through glass walls. Can you
Yes.
believe that? Oh
Oh,
my
I
God.
believe it. I mean, remember, I used to investigate sexual harassment, and it happened at the university, and it wasn't anything that didn't happen, and it's
Yeah.
never not going to happen, and it happens both ways. I mean, there's harassment, men on women, and now women have harassed. I mean, it seems like humanity's a harassing culture, but
Yes.
I
It,
think
it it's full of misogyny. Misogyny has been going on for thousands of years,
and
Sandy, unfortunately.
we didn't even know about her until she died. I mean, nobody, it's not like she was talked about that much, and it's sad because I wish I had known. We could have highlighted her when she was alive years ago and possibly gotten to talk to her.
I
But it
know.
didn't
Great
happen.
loss.
It
But,
didn't happen.
at
So,
least we're finding out about her now.
that's right. That's
And
right. And
yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting article. And the thing is it'll make a great clip too. But
Yeah.
because really with what's going on with losing women's rights in the United States by leaps and bounds, well,
Yeah.
this is very timely.
Yeah.
Maybe her passing is for a reason, to bring this up and bring her out to the spotlight again, because history is taking a very ugly turn. So you know.
It is. It's very scary. I think of what has happened in Arizona, and it just makes me shiver me timbers, you know? It's absolutely unthinkable that people could even think that taking women's rights away, your right over your own body, and anyone who's grown up on this earth, any woman who's grown up on this earth and grown up in America, you know,
Hmm.
knows what it's like to be a young woman and how you can get yourself in compromising situations so quickly, and you can get pregnant so quickly through no fault of your own. You go to a party and you come away and something might have happened, and then you find yourself pregnant, and then you're a criminal for needing to get an abortion.
It's sad that she went through all that, and the other female scientists weren't heard because they, the ignoring is why we're at where we're at now. The ignoring is why we are looking at collapse of everything,
Hmm. Yeah.
because they ignored
Yeah.
it because of the profit motives.